This is the story of Margaret Cole, a woman from Boise, Idaho, who at 52 decided to rewrite the script of her life. She'd been married to Tom for 28 years, a marriage that started with hope, produced 3 kids, and settled into a quiet existence in a split-level house on a tree-lined street. Margaret was a nurse, Tom a construction foreman, and together they'd built a life that looked sturdy, until it cracked under the weight of years. By 2020, their home felt more like a museum than a haven, preserving a past neither of them lived in anymore. Her divorce wasn't a storm of fury, it was a calm, deliberate choice to stop pretending. This is Margaret's journey, a tale of breaking free, facing fear, and finding joy after 50, set in the wide-open spaces of America's Northwest. Margaret met Tom in 1991 at a diner off Interstate 84. She was 24, fresh out of nursing school, sipping coffee after a night shift at St. Luke's Hospital. He was 26, broad-shouldered and sunburned, grabbing a burger between job sites. He asked her out with a crooked smile and a napkin-scrawled phone number. She said yes, charmed by his rough edges and easy laugh. They married in 1992 under a big Idaho sky, surrounded by family in a borrowed barn, wildflowers tucked into her braid. Margaret dreamed of a life full of warmth and chaos. Tom wanted stability, a family to come home to. For years, they made it work, or thought they did. Their first son, Ryan, came in 1994, a loud baby with Tom's blue eyes. Twin girls, Lily and Grace, followed in 1997, doubling the laundry and the love. Margaret juggled night shifts and diaper changes, her scrubs stained with spit up. Tom worked overtime, hammering nails and pouring concrete to keep the bills paid. They bought the house in 1999, a fixer-upper with a sagging porch and a backyard big enough for a swing set. Margaret painted the kitchen yellow, hung curtains she sewed herself, and planted a lilac bush by the driveway. Summers meant barbecues with neighbors, winters brought snowball fights with the kids. It wasn't perfect, money was tight, arguments flared, but it was theirs. At least, it used to be. By her late 40s, Margaret felt the shift. The kids grew up fast. Ryan moved to Seattle for tech work in 2015. The twins left for college in 2018, Lily to Boise State, Grace to Oregon. The house got quiet, too quiet. Tom retreated to his recliner, a beer in hand, the TV blaring sports he barely watched. Margaret's shifts at the hospital stretched longer, her feet aching as she cared for patients who reminded her of her own fading years. She'd try to talk, "What's next for us, Tom?" But he'd shrug, mutter about retirement, and turn away. She started sleeping in the guest room, the space between them wider than the bed they'd once shared. They weren't fighting, they were fading, two strangers under one roof. The moment of truth came in July 2020. Margaret was 52, her hands wrinkled from years of sanitizer and stress. She'd just finished a double shift. The pandemic weighing heavy on her ward. She came home to find Tom on the porch, smoking a cigarette, a habit he'd quit years ago. "You okay?" she asked, her voice tired. He exhaled, gray smoke curling into the dusk. "I don't know, Maggie. Are you?" She sat beside him, the silence thick. "No," she said finally. "I haven't been for a long time." He nodded, like he'd known it too. They didn't cry or shout. They just decided, 28 years was enough. It wasn't hate, it was exhaustion. They'd given all they had, and it was time to let go. Divorce at 52 wasn't simple. Idaho's laws split everything down the middle. They sold the house, too big, too full of echoes, and divided the proceeds. Tom moved to a trailer near Meridian, closer to his crew. Margaret took an apartment downtown, a small place with a view of the foothills. The kids were stunned. Ryan called, angry, "You're throwing it all away, Mom." Lily and Grace texted support but kept their distance. Friends whispered, some pitied her, others admired her guts. The first months were a blur. Margaret worked, slept, and stared at walls, her nursing clogs the only sound in her new life. She missed the chaos, the purpose, even Tom's snoring. At night, she'd wonder if she'd traded one loneliness for another. But endings breed beginnings. In 2021, at 53, Margaret found a spark. She signed up for a pottery class at the Boise Art Museum, a whim, something to fill the empty hours. Her hands, so used to bandages and IVs, fumbled with clay at first. She laughed at her lumpy bowls, but kept going. The class was full of misfits, retirees, single moms, a quiet guy named Ed who'd lost his wife to cancer. They became her people, sharing coffee and stories over spinning wheels. Margaret made a vase, uneven but hers, and painted it blue like the Idaho sky. She set it on her windowsill, a small victory in a world she was learning to navigate alone. By 54, Margaret was growing. She started hiking, short trails at first, then longer treks in the Boise foothills. She'd climb Hull's Gulch, her breath puffing in the crisp air, the city shrinking below. She wasn't fast, but she was steady, her legs stronger than they'd been in years. She joined a book club too, reading novels she'd shelved in her 20s, Atwood, Morrison, stories of women who defied odds. Ed from pottery asked her out, not a romance, just friendship, but it felt good to say yes, to sit across from someone who listened. Her kids softened. Ryan visited, saw her hiking boots by the door, and smiled. You're different, Mom. Lily sent a vase she'd made in art class, a twin to Margaret's. At 55, Margaret thrived. She took a part-time job at a clinic, cutting back hours to breathe. She bought a used Jeep, drove it to McCall one weekend, and stood by the lake, the water cold against her toes. She wasn't rich, her savings were modest, her apartment still smelled of clay and coffee. She wasn't famous, her pottery stayed on her shelf, her hikes unphotographed. But she was Margaret again, not just a wife or mom. Tom remarried in 2023, a woman from his crew. Margaret felt a sting, then peace. She didn't need him to define her. She had her trails, her clay, her quiet joys. Divorce at 52 was terrifying, she says now, her voice firm. But it gave me back me. Across America, across borders, people like Margaret break free every day. Gray divorces aren't failures, they're doors. I'm Jordan Lane, and this is Gray Divorce Diaries. Margaret's story is real, raw, and yours could be too. Subscribe, every day, a new tale of life after 50. You're not alone. Let's find your freedom together.